to another episode of Rules as Written Character Builds. For our build today, I'm going to be trying to recreate the feeling of playing those classic console shooters like Halo, Gears of War, and Doom. I also wanted to incorporate a little bit of healing into this build. My main character that I play in Apex Legends is Newcastle, and I really enjoy the feeling of supporting my allies during the gunfight, so I want this character to have some of that gameplay element. So that's the goal for the build. Let's get into exactly how we're going to accomplish that. So for our race, I wanted to try and get some of that experimental super soldier feel, specifically the neural interface from the Halo franchise and the artificial intelligence companions that are assigned to each Spartan. And the most fitting fantasy equivalent for this is the Kalishtar from the Eberron setting, a compound race of humans bonded to renegade spirits from the realm of dreams. This race gives us some unmatched mental abilities, such as resistance to psychic damage, advantage on all wisdom saving throws, immunity to dream magic, and even the ability to telepathically communicate with other creatures. Now, none of this is going to specifically play into our build, but I do feel like the aesthetic of a human implanted with an external intelligence is just too good to pass up. So for our ability scores, we need to prioritize dexterity for our ranged attacks and intelligence for our spell casting. We also want a decent constitution so we can hang out on the front lines, and I also don't really want to dump strength because of the super soldier theme that we're going for. So for that, we need kind of a good spread of abilities. So for that reason, I'll be going with the standard array. We're going to put our strength up to a 12, dexterity will be a 15, constitution is going to be a 13, intelligence will be a 14, we are dumping our wisdom with an 8, and then our charisma will be a 10. For our background, we're going to be taking guide, putting a +2 into our dexterity and a +1 into our constitution. This gives us the magic initiate druid origin feat. We'll be using intelligence for the ability score, since our Eldritch Knight spellcasting is also tied to intelligence. For our cantrips, take spare the dying and guidance, and for the first level spell provided by the feat, take healing word. This gives us a nice little package of support spells to aid our allies, really playing into that support soldier combat medic theme that I mentioned earlier. And then we're going to be using the fighter class. The fighter class is going to give us all the martial proficiencies, weapons, armor. We're also going to get second wind, action surge, fighting styles, and the most extra attacks of any class in the game. This also gives us access to the weapon mastery property for 3 weapons. This is the only class that gives us 3, so fighters are truly, the masters of martial combat. For this one, grab heavy crossbow for your main weapon. This gives us the push mastery property. Push states if you hit a creature with this weapon, you can push that creature up to 10 feet straight away from yourself if the creature is large or smaller. Force movement's always fun, and with the amount of attacks that a fighter can make, we could be knocking creatures comically far, like upwards of 40 to 80 feet away from us at higher levels. For your second weapon mastery, I'd grab hand crossbows, just in case you want to recreate that dual-wielding play style from Halo 2. Hand crossbows also grant the Vex mastery property. Vex states that if you hit a creature with this weapon and deal damage to the creature, you have advantage on your next attack roll against that creature before the end of your next turn. This is a great property, and with dual wielding, you'll be making extra attacks on top of your extra attacks. So this is really going to give you some mileage. And then for that third mastery property, just grab your favorite finesse melee weapon to give us an option in when we're not in ranged combat. Maybe even pair it with like a hand crossbow for some dual wielding, sword in one hand, hand crossbow in the other. For our fighting style, we're going to be going with archery, giving us a +2 to hit with all of our ranged weapons. And for subclass, we're picking up Eldritch Knight. This grants us spellcasting as well as a slew of features to better incorporate our casting into our martial rotations. The main feature that makes this build work is the 7th level feature, War Magic, which says when you take the attack action on your turn, you can replace one of the attacks with a casting of one of your wizard cantrips that has a casting time of 1 action. At level 18, this feature then becomes Improved War Magic. When you take the attack action on your turn, you can replace 2 of the attacks with the casting of one of your level 1 or 2 wizard spells that has a casting time of 1 action. We'll want to have some damaging cantrips to take advantage of this feature. True Strike, in my opinion, is the best option for this one because we can cast this spell using either a melee or a ranged weapon, and since it uses a ranged weapon as part of the attack, it actually benefits from the archery fighting style, so you'll still get that +2 to hit, even though you're casting a cantrip. I would also consider Firebolt as one of your options. It's got that nice D10 damage dice. You could also pick up Frostbolt, a little less damage, but it does have that slow effect. And one that I really think you should pick up is Acid Splash. It has that 5-foot AoE, so I would see this as like your grenade throw. You know, in Halo, you're always chucking grenades around, so all these cantrips have their damage increased at levels 5, 11, and 17. So since at level 5 they'll be doing 2 dice worth of damage, they should be doing more damage than a single attack. So this trade-off, replacing one of your attacks for a cantrip, is very much worth it. So one thing to keep in mind is that all of these cantrip attacks are going to be on a much lower to hit, because they won't be using our dexterity, they'll be using our intelligence, which is lower than our dexterity, and also because other than the True Strike cantrip, our archery fighting style won't apply to Firebolt, Frostbolt, anything like that. The idea here is to flavor these spells as special shots from the crossbow, kind of along the lines of like an arcane archer subclass. You'll be shooting 1 or 2 times with a regular crossbow bolt, then you'll be launching out a True Strike shot or a Firebolt or something along those lines. But there is actually one non-damaging cantrip that I wanted to incorporate into this build, and that is Mold Earth. See, the reason I'm very excited about this cantrip is because it targets an area of dirt or stone that fits within a 5-foot cube. There's several uses that you can do. You know, a lot of these flavor-based cantrips, it gives you like 5 or 6 bullet points of things that you can do. But I have my eye on the first bullet point of the spell description. If you target an area of loose earth, you instantly excavate it, move it along the ground, and deposit it up to 5 feet away. This movement does not have enough force to cause damage. So this isn't a damaging cantrip. So in essence, we can dig a trench, and then we can place a dirt mound in front of that trench. So we'll be giving ourselves full cover, or at least 3/4 cover, in a single action. So once we couple this with war magic, we can make ourselves cover and then get behind that cover and still make attacks as part of the same action. So you're almost doubling down on your utility. And you can even have allies hop into this cover with you. You could dig a 5-foot hole, put the dirt next to you. You could be in the hole, your allies could be behind the dirt. You could be spreading cover all around, increasing everybody's armor class, getting full cover so you can't be targeted by the other ranged opponents that you're facing on the battlefield. So I think that's a really fun one. That's a cool way to work it into your rotation and still make your attacks. Now, since we are a spellcaster, we're going to be getting a bunch of leveled spells. I think that you should mainly focus on defensive spells like Shield, Mirror Image, and eventually even Haste, as well as a couple ranged damaging spells that can be flavored as shots from your crossbow, such as Scorching Ray, Magic Missile. You could use Shatter and Fireball as like super grenades. Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking for spell options. This build does absolutely require 1 feat, and there are 2 others that I want to pick up just for a little extra benefits. The first feat that we'll be rushing at level 4 is Crossbow Expert. This feat allows us to fire our crossbow while we are within melee range without worrying about the disadvantage, and then it also lets us ignore the loading and the ammunition traits of a crossbow. Also, if we're dual-wielding hand crossbows, which have the light property, so you can make an extra attack with them as a bonus action, this feat lets us add our ability modifier to the damage of the bonus action attack. So it's just like picking up the 2-weapon fighting style. Also, this feat gives us a +1, so that brings our dexterity up to an 18 for a +4 modifier. The other 2 feats that I want to pick up are Piercer and Resilient Dexterity. Piercer is going to give us more consistency on our piercing damage, which is what the crossbows will be doing, as well as more powerful crits. And then Resilient Dexterity is going to give us proficiency in dexterity saving throws, which is great if we're in the thick of it, because if people are throwing fireballs our way, or if, you know, terrain is falling down, we got to dodge out of the way, things like that. It's good to have a little proficiency in there. Also, both of these feats give a +1 to our dexterity, so that'll bring it from an 18 to a 19, and then to a 20. The fighter class has 3 remaining ability scores after that. We've used our 4th, 6th, and 8th level ability scores. So the 3 remaining ones just bring your intelligence from a 14 to a 20 to improve your casting. So yeah, that's all the mechanics that you're going to need to know about this build. The 3 feats, the spells you should take, how you're going to work those extra spells into your rotation. As far as gameplay wise, this character should be played basically the same way that you'd play a cover shooter, like Gears of War or Mass Effect. Once combat breaks out, find a nice piece of cover to get behind. Give yourselves 3/4 or full cover to increase your armor class, and just start firing off into the enemies. Duck behind the cover in between your rounds to hopefully block line of sight on yourself. Maybe you won't even get shot at all while you're back there. And what's really nice is because we can fire while within 5 feet of our enemies, we aren't even afraid of creatures getting in our face. And if you're using the heavy crossbow, utilizing that push weapon mastery, we can even knock them back and reposition without fear of opportunity attacks. So while you're engaged in combat, ducking behind cover, blasting people with your crossbows and your spells, you're going to want to keep an eye on your allies. And when they go down, throw out a healing word with your bonus action to bring them up, or even rush right to them and use a spare the dying to keep them from failing any more death saving throws. Because of our high dexterity, we are going to be using medium armor, and between our utilization of cover and the shield spell as our reaction, we should have a pretty consistently high armor class. Just off the medium armor, we can be sitting with a 17 or an 18, and then shield spell is going to pump that up to like low 20s, 22, 23, and then if you get 3/4 cover, that's another +5, so you could even be sitting with like a 28 armor class while you're in combat, which is going to make you pretty much unhittable against anything but boss monsters with +14 to hits, or the random crit every now and then. And yeah, so there it is, our very own sci-fi commando, restructured and reflavored into a fantasy setting, mowing down enemies from behind cover, and also watching your allies back and keeping them in the fight longer. So thanks for checking out the video. Let me know what you think of the build down in the comments. If you have any suggestions, or if you played something similar to this, let me know. I'd love to hear stories from your table. Subscribe to the channel to see more Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition content, and come back next week to check out a wild axe and hammer wielding dwarven monk that I'm working on.
Don't forget to like the video. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Rules as Written Character Builds. This week we are going to be building what?
The Eldritch Super Soldier.
So stick around. Thanks, folks.
Sorry, there's a little recasting issue, but they amended my contract, so I'm back in.
I deserve the part.
You didn't even know the name of the build!